Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it has been well over a month since the launch of Warside, one of the most anticipated Wars games of the past few years. I was very hyped for this title, but sadly it had a very disastrous launch. You can watch this video for more information about it, but to summarize it shortly, the game launched in a very unfinished state. It was buggy and it was lacking pretty much 80% of the features it had promised. It felt more like an early access game than a full release, and yet the devs charged $26 for it. Needless to say, this did not sit well with the fanbase. The game was bombarded with negative reviews, and a lot of people, myself included, felt a little cheated. However, shortly after launch, the devs posted an apology and promised that they would work hard to deliver daily updates until the game was in a better state. I said that I would come back in a month's time to see how the game was progressing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, that time has come. First of all, let's have a look at their Steam page. Reviews are still mixed, with 60% of them being positive. This is slightly better than the roughly 50% positive reviews they had at launch, but that mixed tag is not a great impression for any game. When checking out the price of the game, I was kind of surprised to see that it had actually gone up. At launch, it was around $26, at least where I lived. Now, the price is $30. That's not a great sign. I think if anything, after a rocky launch, if you lower the price of the game or offer it at a discount, that would have been a good way to apologize and attempt to bring some new players in. On their front page, there's a lot of posts from the developers. They've been very active and they continue to make lots of promises. They have released a lot of patches which has fixed a ton of issues, and they're also making some grand promises about a 2.0 version which supposedly will have a lot of the content that was promised, but I'm not here to evaluate that. Let's actually head into Warside and see what it looks like now. So the first thing I'm noticing when I'm logging into the game is that we have a new Skirmish Mode available. This allows you to play single missions against the CPU, and if you go into the map editor and create a map of your own, you can load it into Skirmish Mode and play it. However, this mode still feels very unfinished. There's currently no way to select the COs used, nor can you play hot seat against other humans. You can just play a predetermined matchup against the AI. Seeing that the game is still this unfinished over a month after launch is not very promising, but let's move on. If we head into the main campaign, we can see that it is now fully completable. By clicking on this button in the lower right corner of the map, you'll transform it into a wasteland, and you can now play the final 6 missions. I decided to play through them quickly just to experience this game's final map. If you don't wish to be spoiled on the story, jump to this timestamp right here. So the final 6 missions take place after the Terraformer has turned the entire continent into a wasteland, and after the death of Mordred, a strange mysterious CO shows up to take his place. This CO reminds me a lot of Sturm from the first game, and he even has a meteor strike like CO power. The last 6 missions still feel very much like the ones that came before them, however. They're all route missions with the occasional cheesy, corny line from the COs fighting, and I gotta be honest, they drag a lot. In the final battle, the main villain is revealed to be none other than Raven herself, now transformed into the evil Phoenix. It's kind of funny that they decided to go this route with her instead of Jackson, as I thought would be the case when he ended up getting captured, but oh well, I guess Raven is the main boss. The final battle is a very simple destroy the lab mission, but oh gee, when you actually end up destroying the lab, you get a bunch of reinforcements and you still have to rout the enemy anyway. I hate it when Warside does this. After taking out Phoenix's forces, she surrenders, and she's taken into custody, and that's that. The campaign is over. I know this has been said a lot, but man, the writing and plot of Warside is really atrocious. There is so little effort put into this dialogue that the whole campaign feels like a placeholder story. COs deliver their lines with zero emotions, and the plot feels so bare bones and weak that it can hardly be called a plot at all. And I have to be honest, this entire campaign also just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. With a few exceptions, almost every single map is a route chapter, and even the maps that do have unique objectives tend to swap over to a route map anyway once the objective is completed. There are only 2 Fog of War maps in the entire campaign, and the rest just feels like generic skirmishes. The original Advance Wars had capture battles, escort missions, factory sabotage operations, defense missions, and so much more. Each mission felt unique and memorable, whereas the campaign maps from Warside just blend into each other. I can't really tell them apart. That being said, there are some positives about this update. One thing I noticed is that the enemy COs actually use their powers against you now, which is definitely a positive thing. And there's also a CO Dossier where you can actually see what the powers do. This is all good. I especially like how it shows a little video reel of the power in action. I do wish it could be a bit more informative, like explaining just how much more defense you get from Ava's shield boosts, but at least this is a start. Sadly, there is no way to see the enemy CO's power bar, nor do they have any power activation lines or animations. The powers just kinda happen, and that's that. Feels very anticlimactic. I am also very saddened to see that out of the 14 playable COs, 5 of them still have placeholder powers. Again, this game feels very incomplete still. It also saddens me that there still hasn't been any sound effects added to the game. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest gripes people have with Warside, how eerily silent it feels. Sound design is really crucial to a game's enjoyment, and Warside not having any makes it feel weird and awkward to play. Finally comes the big tests. Let's check out multiplayer. Here we'll see if there are still some people actually playing the game. So let's queue up for a battle and let's see how long the queue timers are. So yeah, after 2 hours and 13 minutes, I was finally queued up for a game. Of course, at this point, I had gone away from the computer, and since there's no sound effect to notify me that the match has begun, I wasn't able to respond in time. This was a huge issue with Wargroove's quick matches, I remember, and it still boggles my mind how the devs can't just implement a little ping when your match is ready. I mean, everyone knows you all tab when you queue up for anything, even if it's just a few minutes, so this is really a necessary feature. So yeah, 2-hour queue times a month after launch. I'm afraid that kinda seals the deal. Warside is dead, and I'm not sure if there is a way for it to come back, especially now that they've upped the price to $30. You only really get one chance to make a good first impression, and the rushed launch of this game has driven away most of its already small fan base. I know the devs are still working hard to patch the game, but it still being unfinished over a month after its launch is very bad. This game released in an unfinished state, and I am sad to say it is still in a very unfinished state. Part of me wonders why this even happened. Why did the game come out in such a way? Were the developers pressured to publish it? Or were there other things going on behind the scenes? I think some transparency on this issue is warranted, because just blaming the bugs on the rocky launch is disingenuous. Yeah, the bugs were bad, but even worse was the fact that we got a skeleton of a game. That is why most of the people were leaving angry reviews, not the bugs. To my knowledge, I have yet to see the devs actually acknowledge this fact. To this day, they just keep blaming the bugs on the bad launch, and that leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. If we at the very least got an explanation as to why the game launched in the state it did, that would be very nice. But if they just keep on being silent about it, I think a lot of people will be skeptical of any future promises they make. Now, to be fair, I know Warside only has a few developers, so I know it's unreasonable for us to expect them to magically conjure up a finished game in a month, but that is very much the issue here. The fact that the game is still not finished 1 month after launch. Personally, I'll be keeping an eye out on this development to see if the rumored 2.0 patch will ever come out, but until then, I'm afraid it's still a no-go for me. I cannot in good conscience recommend this game. It is still incredibly unfinished. At this pace, I think it will take them at least 6 more months to get the game into a state where it's presentable and actually worth the money. And if they ever actually manage to get there, I will give them a second chance. I will play this game on my channel again, but they have a lot of work to do before I will ever endorse this game to my audience. That being said, I believe in second chances. We've seen many games launch in bad states before, and sometimes the devs actually do manage to dig themselves out of the hole they find themselves in. Will the Warside devs rise to this occasion, or will they remain in the ditch? Time will tell. I want to finish off by saying that I know this video is very negative. I know it may seem like I'm just dunking on a few indie developers, but the truth is I wanted Warside to succeed. I wanted this game to be good, and the game's framework is actually incredibly solid. It still feels amazing to play. The sprite-based graphics look great, I love how all powers have to be activated in a zone, I dig the unique faction-specific units. They are incredibly fun to use and they add a lot of flavor to the game. The developers had a very good vision for a Wars-like game that stands on its own feet, and I was very much looking forward to making this game a staple on my channel, and that's why I'm so sad it ended up launching like it did. Creating a Wars game is difficult. There's so many things that can go wrong. There's a ton of complex mechanics to consider, and you really need a team of people who know the original Advance Wars game inside out to create a solid experience. I hope that one day, Warside will transform into the game we want, and if it doesn't, I hope someone else will rise to the occasion and create that game. Maybe I just have to do it myself. Thank you for watching.